Facebook just said that they're updating their system, so it's not going to be going on Facebook. Is that crazy or what? Greetings, everyone. Tommy Hawksblood here, calling from the Big Island of Hawaii. Seems like we're going to have problems already. Can't get the volume for Sean. And also, Facebook is screwing me already. So let's see what happens. Hopefully it'll come back on. Let me try it again. What a piece of garbage. They're saying they're updating the system. Trouble. Sean, can I hear you? Let's see if it works now. Facebook just said they're updating the system and they canceled me already. Trying to reconnect to them, but it doesn't look good. All right, I'm trying everything. Can you hear me? I know you can hear me. I got to hear you. All right. I can't hear you, huh? Oh, man. Well, Facebook is canceling me out right now, and I can't get them to update it. I'm trying. All right. They just put me back on. They said they couldn't do it. They're updating the system. So everybody, Tommy Hawksblood here, calling from the Big Island, Hawaii. Trying to get the show on the road, but it seems like we have a few problems happening. Tina Bird is actually going to the hospital. She's sick right now. She's been very sick because of, we know what, I keep telling you, she's radioactive, and the doctors won't help her at all. But in the interim, we got a lot to get into. If I can get Sean's voice working, it would be great. Can you hear sound on your computer, Sean? I know when I hit my sound thing, I can at least know that it's working. I can try signing out and signing back in. Sean, I'm going to shut the whole show down and sign back in and see if that helps, all right? Just so you know what I'm doing. All right. Well, there's so many things I want to get in today, since the UFO world's going crazy, and the people in it are as well. All right, Sean, I still can't hear you. Oh man, I don't know what else I can do. Give me hand signals, but Sean David Morton's in the background there. Okay, trying to get his voice on, but it's not working. I cut the show down twice. There's not much else I can do. I don't know if it's on your end or my end, but I doubt it's on my end for some reason. And the first question I was going to ask you, you think the government's going to harass us? Somebody asked me about radioactive. I'll get into that in a second. But people, this is the only show that I can guarantee that everything we talk about is the truth, to the honest truth, that whoever's speaking, whoever I bring on my show is 100% real, not making up stories, a storyteller. They're not a whistleblower. They're a truth teller, meaning they tell about their own true story and what's happened around them. I've been doing a show for 2 years, over 2 years with Tina. I did a show with TJ Morris for over 12 years. So I do not bring many people on my show because I don't like to bring storytellers on. And Sean's definitely not one of them. Oh man, this ain't working, Sean. I don't know what to do. All this time we got it set up and can't get your voice on. Man, this is... Sorry, people. We had problems last week. We're going to have problems again this week. I mean, Facebook gave me a problem, but they just put me back on. They were going to cut me off. Well, you got your kitty cat. My dog's playing games right now. But where do we start? I want to start with Hawaii. People talk about Hawaii being so beautiful and everything. I live here. I've been here for 20 years. See your kitty? My dog's hanging around, but I think he just went out for a walk and he's been bugging me. But there's so much going on in Hawaii, people. Hawaii is the first base center for the defense of the United States. And I don't think too many people know that. Meaning they have to defend the western part of the United States, western, eastern, both, basically the whole United States, but we're on the west side. So we have an army base that's underground. Nobody can see it. We have a no-fly zone here. We have HAARP systems on both islands. If you don't know what that is, look it up, HAARP system. All right. On top of that, I had my partner film 3 ships over the Army base in the middle of the day, and I wasn't with her, and she's not into the whole thing. But she goes, check these pictures out. And sure enough, there's 3 triangle ships over the base. And this was 2 years ago. Now, I'm going to say a couple of things. I don't know if we can get Sean's voice on or not, but in town, down in Hilo, I was at the end of town going to the bank, and I found out the bank was closed. At that second, a giant triangle ship came out from under the mountain. All right. And it had to be less than 100 feet above my head when it started going up. And the sound was blowing my eardrums out. I grabbed my camera. My camera was frozen. And then when I went for my other camera, it was also frozen. But within 4 seconds, the ship was gone. All right. And it must have been our ship. I'm not saying it was a UFO. It was a triangle ship, but it was ours. And I was in town. So I went into town and asked a few people. None of them heard it. I was only a couple blocks from the main part of town, and none of them heard the sound from the ship. But like I said, it disappeared in 4 seconds. None of our planes, anybody that sees anywhere on the planet can see it go disappear that fast. All right. So that was years ago. But now the U.S. government is releasing a spaceship next year. By the end of this year. I don't even know what they're going to name it. There was a name for it. But it already cost $40 billion. It'll be the most deadliest weapon for the United States. So people, when they say we have no money, the money's being spent out there for main government war things. Oh man, this is horrible. Can you use a cell phone? Do you have a cell phone? I hate to tell you to use it, but you could probably get on through Skype on the cell phone. I know you'd like to use your big setup, but try it, all right? It couldn't hurt. Sorry, people. I have one of the best UFO people out there, main speakers, who's alive, barely. All right. All the few other ones I knew are gone. Now, his friend, I guess he called him his uncle, Fred Bell, also got terminated 2 days after he did a show with Jesse Ventura. All right. Uh, People, if you're telling the truth in the UFO world, and it's important truth, the government harasses you. And it's no lie. Not only do they harass you, they take you out. I lost 16 of my friends in the past 25 years. All right. That's not a good thing. 2 were in jail. 1 was in the nut house. And guess what? 1 was a whole family. And I knew him since I was 12 years old. He worked for NASA. So he disappeared, and I called the school. His children disappeared. His family disappeared. And that all happened within 1 week. I met him at a UFO conference. He said NASA doesn't like him to get involved with UFO stuff. And we were showing him UFOs, and 2 days later, we were going to have a big meeting. We were going to set up a private community, and his whole family disappeared right then and there. So I can say, like I said, 16 of my friends and top speakers in the UFO world are gone. All right. Now, when I met them, I didn't know him, but one of the coolest people that I know, Bob Dean in the UFO world, he was friends with somebody I know really close. They work top secret in the Army, and they said they work with 27 alien races. Everybody out there, even Putin said he worked with 27 alien races. And he went public 3 months before Trump was elected. Nobody wants to hear that story. He admitted that they're working with aliens. He wanted Trump, before he was elected, to release the facts about 9/11 and what really happened with the space program and what they're doing with aliens. But you know what's funny? When he met Putin the day after he created the space army, all right, I don't know how much they really got into it, but he had to say something to him, because the day after Trump said we're going to create the space army, all right, and he did, which was already in existence, but he decided to create it. This is pretty bad, Sean. I wish I had a better way to communicate. Can you call me on Skype? Oh, you got your cell phone. Uh, okay, let me pull up the link. Hold on. Let me go into Facebook. Oh, well, I got the wrong link there. Let me just pull this up. Sorry, people. Give me a second here. We're trying to get Sean on. So, Sean, I sent you the phone number. See if that helps. Sean, is the number going through? Come on. Hello? Can you hear me? What's going on? Streamline, get out of there. Put your number in and I'll call you, Sean. Oh, come on, this is crazy. I can see you typing. Sorry, what's going on here? I'm trying to connect with you on Skype right now. I see you typing, but
the person you are trying to reach is currently unavailable. Please leave a message after the tone.
Are you still there? You still there, Sean? Can you hear me? Let me call you on my. Sean, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, let me put you.
Fine.
I'll put you as loud as I can. All right, let me just close this out for a second here. All right. Yeah, I can hear you. Are you okay right now?
Yeah. I'm getting it.
Hold on. I hear you fine now.
Okay, just through the cell phone, right? Through the cell phone? Through the cell phone.
I have to come to the cell phone. Oh man. I never had this. Seriously. I've been doing it for years. I had a few billion hours to do anything.
Well, it's because you're using this crap StreamYard program. If you use Zoom or Skype, we wouldn't have any problems.
All right.
We can't do this whole thing through Skype.
Yeah, move over to that. We're here now.
Oh, okay. Well,
And then if I link to everybody, do that.
all right. Well, it sounds like it's from outer space, but it's okay if you want to do it this way.
You want people? We can another day. And we'll set it on Skype or Zoom, whatever. But you have this file. All right. So, especially in another place, I always have to
Okay. If you want to just reschedule, that's I always have time for you, Tommy.
Well, I was talking to you, and I wonder, but this sounds horrible.
Okay.
Hold on.
You're all good on my end.
How's that sound?
Well, I'm obviously getting an echo through the cell phone.
Well, I disconnected the voice on my program, and it's just coming through the cell phone now.
Okay.
So it's just, I mean, I hear your voice clear on this end.
All right. It's bad enough that because of the throat cancer, I
know
sound
that.
I sound like a Muppet character already.
No, somebody out there said it's better now. All right.
Okay.
So she just said that she can. It just fixed it. Well, it's going to have to be this way. Let's do a little bit anyway because I have you here, and I didn't get to talk to you in such a long time.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
Okay, Sean. I don't know how far you want to get into your life or what you want to say, but I would really like you to introduce yourself because some people might not know who you are.
What?
Let me just give you an introduction. Sean David Morton, I knew him for a very long time. He was the top spiritual, psychic, UFO person in the UFO world for many years. In 1995, Michael Scallion was considered the top psychic at the time, and he kind of disappeared. But Sean was out there mainstream, and he was doing all the conferences, and he did all the whole life expos, and that's how I met him. But ever since then, he was one of the top psychics rated on the internet as number 86% accurate compared to all the other people who were like 34, 36. He also predicted 9/11 in complete detail exactly 1 year before it happened. All right.
Actually, it was back in '94, and then again in '96 on hard copy, and then a year before when I fingered Osama bin Laden, who would be the guy behind it. And I'm not sure if you remember or not, but I ran an entire issue of my Delphi Associates newsletter saying that this guy would be considered the next Antichrist. And I had a police drawing that I did of him without the beard, holding up a finger with a ruby ring on it. And lo and behold, there's bin Laden holding up the ruby ring. Some years later, and that was way back in my book, The Millennium Factor. That was in '92, and then in '94, I said it was going to be 2011 that you'd have aerial attacks on New York City and biological attacks on Washington, and everybody forgets the biological attack on the post office in Washington.
Right.
And this also had to do with George Bush becoming president, which I predicted in '97. And Art Bell said I was crazy. That he said, the governor of Texas. And I said, yeah, and he's going to be dripping in blood. So, I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to toot my own horn there.
No, that's fine because people might not know. I mean, the UFO world changed so much in the past 25 years. It's crazy. I'd say since I moved to Hawaii, it has gone downhill so bad. All these people making tons of money in the UFO world, Ancient Aliens is part of the problem. But these conferences, the speaker gets $20,000. Did you ever get $20,000 to speak at a conference?
No. When does that ever happen?
It's happening now.
What?
And I'm serious about that. Fred, the Coast to Coast, George Norrie, He goes to a conference. They give him the money. They give him the hotel. And they let him have dinner with everybody every Friday night. They always have dinner with the main speaker.
That's because he's too stupid to put on a seminar. And all he can do now is I started the panels at the Whole Life Expo and the Conscious Life Expo and whatever else. And Nori accused me of a bunch of stuff on the radio, which was completely not true. And then went to the heads of the expo saying, I want Sean kicked out of the expos, and I want to do all his jobs. I want to host all his panels. So now he's touring around the country, having people pay, and of course he wants $10,000 up front, first class, for him and Fat Tom Dumbheiser, his henchman. And he won't give a speech because he doesn't know enough to give a speech. He doesn't have an opinion.
Well, see,
so he has people pay between $150 and $300 to shake his hand at a meet and greet because he's so stupid. And let me tell you the numbers. When I was producing Art Bell, and this is when I was providing him guests. This is in the early 90s. This is between 91 and I think about 93 or so, during the whole rage at Area 51. And then I was done with Area 51 because they moved all the ships out of Area 51 and they shipped them to Utah, to Dugway, also called Area 64.
Right, they give it a number, yeah.
And now there's a ginormous underground facility underneath Kings Peak, which is in the Uinta National Forest in the middle of nowhere in Utah. And that's where most of our stuff has been moved. So, I mean, they still use S2 and some of S4 for a lot of stuff, but 5.1 itself is used for conventional technology. I mean, we're talking ramjets, scramjets, plutonium pulse drives, things like that. As a matter of fact, there's a company running now out of Switzerland that has a jet that runs on hydrogen, and this thing can do Mach 5, carry 25 people, is going to carry up to 100 people, and they'll have this thing running by 2030. And back in the summer of 92, myself and my friend John Hadley, who's another person who was murdered by the government, like all your friends, when we weren't seeing saucers and weird cones of light, the biggest thing that we saw out there was can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, I've got an echo in my ear. We saw a gigantic shuttle of some kind that looks like the.
Well, wait, Sean. The echo started now, so move the headset somewhere else. Maybe it's coming through the headset somewhere. Yeah, don't put it near the computer. Move it away from the computer. Right, that's better.
Test I want to.
All right. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, is it your echo or my echo?
No, it was yours. When you put it near the computer, it started double echoing.
Oh, okay. That's because it was closer to the microphone.
Right.
The biggest thing we saw out there, which was an object coming in from space that was causing 3.2 earthquakes on the ground, that Kate Hutton at Caltech said they called them skyquakes. And they were coming in, these objects were coming in over San Diego to land at 5.1. They were tracking the glaciers at Mount Shasta to land at 5.1. And they were flying right over my house in Hermosa Beach, landing at 5.1. So I'm in my house, and the roof starts to shake, and it was exactly like an earthquake in reverse, where then the windows went, and then the floor. and we turn on channel 7, and there's Paul Moyers back in the day, and they go to Kate Hutton at Caltech. Now, they were saying that there were 2 objects that were traveling at Mach 25, and that they were coming in from space and landing at the mysterious Area 51. They contacted Edwards Air Force Base. Edwards said, we have no idea what this is, which is absolutely true, because none of the guys at Edwards Air Force Base ever knew what was going on at 5-1. They didn't even have the clearance to go out there. So anyway, so what we saw a shuttle that was blunt-nosed, that was black on the bottom, silver on the top, and it looked just like Darth Vader's kind of Avenger ship, except it wasn't pointed. It was blunt and flat. And this thing was probably 1,600 feet from tip to tail. Now, some years later, John Hadley calls me on the phone, and he says, you got to turn on the Discovery Channel right now. And this is back before you could back and forth things and whatever else, with streaming. And I turn it on, and there's a story on Discovery Channel about an advanced prototype, which was a shuttle called the X-60. And they said this thing would be flying back and forth from Earth to the moon sometime around the year 2030 or so. Now, it's interesting because there was just a thing that came over the internet about this brand new aircraft that could fly on hydrogen that travels at Mach 5 that is going to cut the time traveling from New York to Los Angeles from 5 hours to maybe 40 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. And that it could also fly from Los Angeles to Tokyo in 4 hours, or to Australia in 4 hours. So this is tech that is now moving into the commercial world, as opposed to the stuff that we saw, out there way back in the day. Now, this was the stuff that was other than the saucers that we would photograph and we would film, and we would see virtually on every Wednesday night. And of course, we were mocked by Popular Science and Popular Mechanics and Stuart Brown and those people out there who, even though we sent them photographs, we realized that these were all run by Mirror Communications and Time. And all those media outlets are run by the CIA. All of them. So Trump wonders why he's got the media bashing him, and he doesn't understand that CNN was actually set up as an intelligence gathering device by the CIA. Because what better way to gather on-the-ground intelligence than to have reporters and obviously have the cover of a world news gathering agency. So that's why CNN has been such a player in all this. And it's another reason why you have these 51 intelligence idiots all sign off on that Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation and that the whole thing was fake. So, I mean, when Brennan, who was former head of the CIA, said, we will have accomplished our mission when everything everyone in America knows is wrong. And this guy's a government employee. So, getting off the track, I'm sorry. So,
well, Tic Tac is going, they're doing the same thing with Tic Tac, saying China's trying to get all our information.
TikTok.
TikTok. I say Tic Tac because of the Tic Tacs that they're filming, supposedly. Right. All right, but just before you go any further, I have seen UFOs when I was 6 years old. I have seen them every day that I go outside at nighttime. I film in ships every day in Hawaii. I got all my friends in Hawaii filming ships and everything else. My friend next door filmed 12 ships coming out of the ground here in Hawaii. He won't give it to me. He's afraid the government will come after him. And I said, well, what are you going to do with it? Well, I filmed it. I said, I'll say I filmed it. It doesn't matter. But he's just so afraid to release the video. But he showed it to me. Really cool. The ships,
Okay.
one at a time, come up, do a slight circle, and then shoot right out into space. You know, I got a book, How to See a UFO. It's a free manual. Anybody wants it. But people, if you want to see UFOs, just go out at nighttime. Spend 4 hours on a clear night. You're going to see something. Get a cheap camera. I got a pretty decent camera. I was supposed to, my friend that was going to sell me a night vision goggles,
Right.
he was killed the week before I got it. All right. He told me they're going to kill him, and then he was dead. So I never got him. But people, this is the real one. Sean is, to me, one of the most important people out there in the UFO world. I mean, he disappeared for a while for major reasons, but he's here right now. But all these people in the UFO world hate me. They're afraid of me. I joined the Skinwalker Ranch. All these people, I joined all their sites. They won't talk to me. I got one letter saying, well, what do you want to talk about? I said, I want to give them a few hints to film UFOs during the day. I want to give them a few hints about what's really going on. And not one of them will get back to me. Now,
well, it's pretty easy. You just point your camera at the sky,
but
and then fast forward it. And that's one of the things we learned out at 5-1 is we would take an extra camera. Of course, this was back in the day when you didn't just have cameras laying around, because nobody had cameras on their phones. But we would just point it at the hill at Bald Mountain, which was funny that it was called that, since, you know, Bald Mountain is where the demons all dance around in Fartasia. And then you just run it back, and stuff would just appear. I mean, things would just and shoot off and do whatever stuff. So there was a serious dimensional vortex there that stuff was coming in and out of all the time. Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to go into the story about the vortex that was ripped open because of the Philadelphia experiment, but I will do that one day, because I was up there. I mean, all the things that I saw up there are incredible. What happened there, it's the most important UFO story in the United States, and not one UFO person can speak about it.
Which one is this?
Al Bielek died.
Yeah,
Wanakee, New Jersey. 6 months.
Well, he was living in Florida, and I was supporting him. I mean, I was paying his rent before he died, but he was really sick.
Right. But
yes, he was one of the greatest and wildest stories ever. And I'm hoping to turn his story into a movie someday.
Well, it should be, because the Philadelphia experiment wasn't up to par. They kind of downplayed everything that was really going on with a love story. But the truth is, I was involved with that.
They did do movies about it, but they were horrible.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Even Travis Walton, who wants to do his movie over because it's not right. I dealt with it.
Was terrible. Not only was it terrible, but it was directed by Adam Nimoy. And I went to the screening of it at Paramount, because this was came out March 3rd of 93. And Nimoy walked out. He said this was atrocious. He said it's a travesty. He said you could have done a film that, because they didn't hurt Travis. Matter of fact, he hit one of the aliens in the head with a chair and got loose and started running around the ship. And they stopped him and said the only reason he was taken on board the ship was because they were afraid they'd hurt him with the fire from the ship, because he ran towards it.
Right, he ran into it, yeah.
So, and then he was taken around a very pleasant tour of the universe, not tortured like he was in the movie. And so, whatever. Anyway.
Well, I can go. I don't want to go into some of the details, because Tina Bird, the one I do the show with, she's been abducted most of her life. They got her children on a ship. She was taken up. They're following her because she's the only one that she could actually communicate with all of them, and they don't know why. But she's radioactive, and somebody asked me about that. I got a Geiger counter. I made her buy one. We take it out every day, and we show that she's radioactive. But it goes up and down. And
she's actually personally radioactive.
Right, but it's not possible
not
to go up and
down. In the aspect that
the Geiger counter goes up.
Show, so.
But she has all the symptoms. She's losing her teeth, losing her fingernails, losing her hair. She's passing out, and when she gets hit, her whole body turns black and blue. Now, the biggest part of that whole story, she went to the hospital, and they removed a big black mass from her stomach. She went to court to get it, and they said it's too controversial. They can't release it.
Huh.
Now, she just got letters. She told me last week, she's in the hospital right now, but she got letters saying that they put some kind of birth control device inside her.
What?
It's a ridiculous story, but that's what the documents from the hospital are saying to her now. And she's going through so much. I keep saying, I'm glad you're still here. Her dog died of radiation poisoning 6 months ago. So she's still lost on her dog. But in the interim, she's becoming famous. Her book, Not on UFOs, was a bestseller on Amazon last month.
Okay.
She's been trying to publish her UFO book for 4.5 months. Every company comes up with some stupid story saying we can't publish it. All right. I gave her a friend, and she has somebody else right now. Hopefully we can get it out because all the things that happened to her, her boyfriend cut her implants out. All right. They both were abducted at the same time. I'm getting people from when I was in court against the phone company. The judge asked me to stay after the court case, and he goes to me, he was out with his wife in the car, and a ship came over him. And he's telling me this whole story, but he wouldn't say during the court case, obviously. My people next door to me right now, they've both been abducted. They want to come on the show. I don't know him, that he's fighting with everybody in the neighborhood, so I don't know how that's going to go. But I have 10 people in this neighborhood watching UFOs. We had a mothership over 6 months ago. It blocked off about maybe 4 blocks, and it came across us real slow. Not a word said about it. Now What's that?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Not through the phone.
Well, it's kind of echo, but I can hear you.
Okay, so for some reason the mic was muted.
Hold on.
Testing
Testing
one.
one. Testing one.
Okay, now that's
Okay.
that's
Now
my
it's-
phone.
Now it's telling me.
You're muted. I muted you. Hold on.
Testing.
Try that now.
Can you hear me now?
Let me mute. Hold on. All right, that should be okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
What? Okay.
Okay.
The mic was muted on your end.
Why muted it?
Okay, I'm gonna cut the phone off. Okay, I'm cutting the phone off.
Good. Okay, that should be okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, there we go.
All right, fine.
Much less.
We're big. Sounds like a movie.
Okay, so there we go.
Like I said, this is a comedy
So
show.
look, right here, you will completely forget everything that you've heard up till now, and you'll realize that this is the greatest UFO speaker and guest that you've ever heard. You will buy all of Sean's Sands of Time books, and you will do it right now. Thank you very much.
I got one.
Wait,
One is out.
I got alien. I got glasses to scare your girlfriend. Hold on. There you go. How about these? There, yay! That's my book, Iceman Protocol.
Okay. Here's the UFO. Now I got double.
Okay, so what were we talking about? We were talking about your girlfriend, and sounds like also she needs to be taken seriously. Bunches of kelp, and George's ice aloe juice, which is the only known cure for radiation poisoning that I know of.
I just heard Apple Pectin was what they gave people to cure them. No, yes. And I wanted to tell you that too. Why do I got?
Yeah, now you sound like you're underwater.
Better?
Testing.
No.
This is on your end, Tommy. It's not me.
No, it's not. I didn't have feedback. Well, a while.
Okay. You need to either back off your microphone or. Okay.
No.
Try it now.
Well, let's have
Now you sound like Aquaman. I sound fine, but you sound like Aquaman. You sound like Diver Dan at the bottom of a fish tank.
Hold on.
Okay, now I hear nothing. Now you're muted. Now you're muted. Now you're live. Do you have headphones?
No,
You don't have headphones. Okay. Just
I
saying.
haven't used it in 2 years. Man, this is crazy. How?
This is
I mean,
this is StreamYard, man. StreamYard is like junkyard. It's awful.
Oh no, I hear it.
Okay. I can hear you now. Now you sound okay.
Sean,
Yes.
somebody is dealing with us. The person in the side head. I told you. I got. Do you know what happened when I was bringing you on?
Okay, what?
My computer shut down twice and said you locked out. My whole computer shut down.
Okay, that sounds typical.
Yes. I was afraid to do it, and that happened. The only I could turn the show up again.
Okay, I mean, I hear you enough. I mean, you can hear me fine, right?
Anyway.
Do I sound okay? What?
Just you talking.
Okay.
No problem.
So, what you were talking about is that it's very interesting that there is a clip out there that shows Vladimir Putin in a detente. He's on a stage across from Trump on the other side of the stage. And he says in Russian, and it goes through a translator, and he says, Mr. Trump, by the time you're finished being president of the United States, you need to tell the people the whole truth about 9/11, and you need to warn them that we are currently in touch with 27 alien species, 3 of which are actively trying to destroy us. And again, this is the president of Russia. So whether or not Trump took this to heart, but yes, you're right. He formed the 6th branch of the military, being the Space Force. People also don't know that when Nikola Tesla died, the person that they asked to go through all of Tesla's trunks and his research material was Jonathan Trump, who was Donald's uncle. And supposedly, when the ships crashed at Roswell, they also called in Jonathan Trump, who was, I think, head of the science department at MIT at the time. So Trump comes in this whole line of geniuses, whether you like him or not.
Well,
So there we go.
I just want to say, when I was working at my New Jersey, Tesla worked They worked on the canal, and I got to see a few of his what he said he actually was the whaling race. But in the end, ships were going in and out of the water for 9 months and he was stationed around it. That story will be. But in the intro, it just stopped instantly. It flooded the city during that time. But
I don't know if you're broadcasting this way, but again, you sound like you're broadcasting out of a fish tank.
All right. Well, look,
there's a watery echo on here that you did something to your microphone.
I didn't do anything. When you switched over to you did the reverb back on you. Hold on, let me Skype. I'll shut Skype. I don't know. Better?
Yes.
Well, time delay.
Okay, you're good now.
All right. Let's stick with you. I want to hear you. Again, if you have questions in the chat room. All right. And one question, please. Sean, how is your health? Are you in remission?
Yeah, the challenge. I just went to the doctor again today, actually. In my time away in art school, I developed squamous cell throat cancer. And when I got out, I think it was June 5th of 2021, that it was diagnosed as terminal and that I would be dead by Christmas. And there was no way to operate on it because the tumors themselves were wrapped around my carotids excuse me, and my jugular vein, my main artery. And this thing was hanging out of my neck. I mean, I had a 16 centimeter tumor that was about the size of a goose egg hanging out of my neck. Now, when I hit the street again, I discovered that Steve Salas and his girlfriend Anna DeVito had stolen my wallet, broken into my bank account, stolen every dime I had, somehow found a way to steal my car and sell it, a classic 1975 Fiat. So I was penniless. I was homeless. I was penniless. I was sleeping on the couch of a pair of simply awful Mexican people who were just abusing me every day. And what I did is that I used this hillbilly remedy called black salve, just to keep it brief. And black salve is for very small, moles and very small squamous cell cancers like moles and warts and things. I just put a belt between my teeth, took a bunch of painkillers, and slathered it on this tumor. And because it was a squamous cell tumor, it managed to actually dissolve the tumor on my neck. And but there was still tumorous stuff on the inside. So Val Kilmer and I have known each other about 30 years. And he had the same thing I had, and he waited too long because Val he's a Christian Scientist. And in solidarity with his religion, he just said, "Look, man, I did all the voodoo, I did all the hands-on, I did all the praying and all the Mary Baker Eddy mind over matter stuff, and nothing worked." He said, "This is one thing that these stupid-ass Western doctors can actually cure." So, because it's not a pancreatic-based cancer, it's a viral-based cancer. So he said, just let them do what they're going to do. So I went through the chemo, which gave me the amazing ability to projectile vomit unexpectedly at the weirdest times. And then I went through, I think it was 37 blasts of chemo radiation, which gave me third-degree burns on the outside and the inside of my neck. The problem was that back in August of last year, I started bleeding uncontrollably through my mouth. And I'm coughing up gouts of blood. And I went to the emergency room, and they were perfectly ready to prepare to do it by putting what they call silver nitrate sticks. And they put them down your throat, and it staunches the bleeding. But instead of them just doing that, this jackass Korean doctor named Dr. Sun showed up and slit my throat open, deciding that that's the way to save his life. So they gave me a tracheotomy. And I woke up not being able to speak at all with a tube in my throat. And I spent 10 days in the ICU because of this operation. Now, long story short, I'm cancer-free, they believe. But the damage has been done through the tracheotomy, through what they did to me. So I still can't eat. I still can't. I can't eat a hamburger or pizza or anything like that. So I can barely eat. I basically can eat soup. Soup and tiny little pieces of something washed down. And the cancer treatment actually killed all my taste buds and blew out my salivary glands, so I have to chew this gum all the time and drink this throat coat tea, which is interesting. So it says tears of my enemies on it. And so yeah, the cancer's in remission, but now I have to recover from what Western medicine did to me. So because I tried every other alternative therapy, and all it was doing was keeping it at bay. It wasn't actually killing it. So that's where I'm at now.
Wow.
And that's why I sound like Kermit the Frog, and I have this huge swollen, this is all from the fluid from out of my face, coming from my dead saliva glands.
Are you all right now?
Yeah, I'm just hopped up on low-quat Chinese cough syrup and throat coat tea and Manuka honey, which is allowing me to speak to you for the couple hours that I can talk. So that's where I'm at.
You want a little bit more?
What?
You want to talk about a little bit? People can talk about that.
Oh, yes, of course, please. So the reason I got in all this trouble with the government, here's the crazy part. It was so Kafka-esque, the entire thing, because I filed for a tax return, and I used all the IRS's proper forms, gave them all the information that they wanted. and they gave me a tax return. And then 6 months later, they decided that they didn't like their own tax return, and going through none of the process. They didn't speak to me. There wasn't a hearing. There was nothing else. They went and looted Melissa's bank account. They looted the bank account of a production company that had nothing to do with me. So they managed to get away with about $60,000, which has just disappeared, by the way. And then sent me a letter that said they wanted all the money back. And I was like, why? And I kept writing them letters back saying, if you tell me why or what I did wrong, I'd be happy to give it back to you. And their decision was, no, we're just going to try to throw you in prison. And, of course, they put charge on charge on charge. And the hilarious part about this is, well, it's not hilarious at all. You know, Trump is complaining that the DOJ has been weaponized and that it was being used exclusively against him. Not true. The DOJ was weaponized and used against me, everybody that was a leader or a freedom speaker or in the constitutional movement, I guess you could say. And that included me, Winston Shrout, who was doing bonds to help people fight the banks, Tim Turner, who was head of the Southern Confederacy, and he was down in Alabama, Arkansas somewhere. Rocky Hudson, who I was actually in prison with in Big Spring, Texas, which was not even my jurisdiction, which was weird. And he had helped something like 400 people fight the banks using federal law against them. And he got 7 years for writing one check, which they claimed was bad, but wasn't. Didn't profit from it in any way, shape, or form. And in my case, it was kind of interesting because the prosecutor got up at the very beginning and said this case has no victims and there is no monetary loss to anyone because they couldn't find anybody to testify against me because of the 10 people that I was helping fight the banks. None of them would testify against me. They all said whatever I was doing was proper and correct. And I wasn't charging them any money. I mean, they would donate money to me. And then they put an IRS agent on the stand, and the judge said, this is not an IRS tax evasion case. This is not based on fraud. He told you every dime he made over 5 years. Now, this directly had to do with when I was using remote viewing, and $300,000 of my own money, and this is probably more interesting than UFO stuff, and $250,000 of a group of people's money. But I turned that into almost $7 million using remote viewing techniques. And then I had a trader because I didn't want to have anything to do with the trading of it because you don't want to get your psychic chakras mixed up with your base root chakras. And this guy decided when I told him that the dollar was going to completely tank and that the Canadian and Australian dollars were going to be worth more than the US dollar, and that the euro was going to go to $1.52. It went to $1.49, actually, from nothing. He said I was crazy. And so he did the exact opposite. He bet against me and did the exact opposite of everything I said. And he tanked the accounts. I mean, just lost all the money. We had $300,000 left, which was going to go to repay all the people that were in the investment account. And then suddenly the Security and Exchange Commission, underneath this gay Jew named Bennett Ellenbogen, pressured FXCM to close our accounts, which they did, and they closed out all our positions, left us with $20,000, which went to legal fees. So they, in essence, stole all the money that was supposed to go back to the investors. So, and of course, I was the biggest loser in this entire thing. Then one guy was in it, and he had a gay boyfriend who worked for the SEC, again, Bennett Ellenbogen. And the SEC came after me with a civil lawsuit. And, of course, my friend George Norrie got up on the radio and claimed I'd been indicted by the SEC, none of which happened, in a civil lawsuit. And I said, no, you guys, this is not your jurisdiction. You're a private corporation. You guys can, fuck off. And I just wrote that on most of the stuff that they sent me, saying, because it all says may. We might do this. We may do that. We might call the DOJ. And they were doing something, they were doing stuff out in New York, and I hadn't done anything in New York. So, anyway, interestingly enough, this whole thing was like, we did a deposition with them, and they said, where are you hiding $6.7 million? And my attorney looked at it, and we finally figured this out, that they had actually subpoenaed the wrong company. that had the same name as us that held apartment complexes in Florida. And it just so happened to be named the same. And you can have 50 different companies in 50 different states, all named the same thing, all owned by 50 different people. And they didn't know this. So they shot their entire case out of the water. And they went ahead anyway. They just went and made stuff up and knew I wasn't going to fight them. So in a case where I was denied a phone appearance, first time that's happened in 40 years, on a date when New York and Manhattan were completely closed, the bridges were closed, the airports were closed, the trains were shut down. It was during Nor'easter Nebo, the first time they were naming these nor'easters. And they ruled against me, and Judge Cat Forrest, of all things, because we raised Norwegian forest cats, ruled against me in this case and came up with a judgment that could not be applied anywhere outside of the Southern District of New York, which is only the lower district of Manhattan. So the whole thing was a joke. It was a complete farce. But they continued after me, and we tried to declare bankruptcy because we had nothing. And the DOJ came down and vehemently attacked. It cost them $75 million to put my wife and I in prison. $75 million. And all my wife did was notarize documents. She had nothing to do with anything, and they still put her in prison for 2.5 years. So, and the whole reason for all this was because I'd written the Sands of Time books. And I was told by Dr. Ted Humphrey, not his real name, but the gentleman that gave me the books in the first place. I had contact with this gentleman since 2004. And this was when I was doing Art Bell. So for him and the secret government, the secret space program guys, I was the perfect conduit of information for them to get stuff out to the public. And he would call me and tell me what was what, and I would go on coast to coast back when Art Bell had 27 million people listening to the show. And of course, by the time this talentless hack George Norrie took it over, I think if he's got 300,000 listeners now, I'd be really surprised. And he makes his money by doing these panel experts that go to, Dallas or Houston or whatever, and pay a bunch of money, $150 to meet him at a show. And now he's not even worth that. So, you're not going to see him in public anymore because no promoter is willing to pay his exorbitant fees for something that has no return. So, but in 2009, after a conversation with him on the phone, he was actually at Obama's inauguration. And I had bet him $100 that Obama would not be able to complete the oath, that they would find a way to screw up the oath around Obama. And he said that's impossible. Everybody tells me my predictions are impossible, and then they come true. And I'm the only guy that's standing there going, I told you so. So he calls me on the phone, laughing his head off, going, I cannot believe that I've just watched, he had a derogatory name for Obama, and another derogatory name for John Roberts, pedophile, homosexual. And I'm sitting there watching it. I owe you $100. I was like, okay. So March of that year, I get a call from some very scary lawyers that have a lot to do with the military, and they used to handle TRW, Northrop Grumman, and that sort of thing. And I go up to Century City, and they have stacks of diaries, and they make me sign these murderous non-disclosure papers that basically said, on pain of death, you can't tell people who this man is, or reveal the name of his wife and relatives because they're still alive, and there's people still in these projects that are still working. And I said, okay. Now, this came on the heels of my being willing to get a download of information from an Area 51 assassin named Connor or Derek Hennessy, depending on what day it was, who called himself Ghostwalker. And I was in the whole Ghostwalker thing with Jim Cox and Jim Delatoso and Wendell Stephen, where Delta Force was supposedly chasing this guy around and threatening to kill him. So I said, I'm willing to take receipt. This is when I was working for Geraldo Rivera. And by the way, I mean, maybe this is the difference between me and why so many people have their hands off me. But I mean, I got paid to research all this stuff. I mean, I did a documentary called UFO Contactees back in 1989 and 90. Then it was 91, 92 that I did sightings with Linda Moulton Howe for the pilot episode of that. That then led to my being brought into the founding of, I was one of the founders of UPN with Jim Carbonetti and Art Maturo, who's working on Ancient Aliens now. And I had a show, we had a show called Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion with Dr. Franklin Rule. And I had a pilot for a program called Declassified, which had been bought by Sci-Fi. And then Sci-Fi turned around and said, Sci-Fi eventually got bought by Bonnie Hammer and the people at USA Networks. And they said, we don't have any money to produce Declassified because, and we're not talking about it, we're talking about $600 a week maybe, because we just bought all the reruns to a show called Land of the Giants, which I never did see on Sci-Fi, but they had Land of the Giants, they had Invaders, they had a lot of really cheesy, old, they had, Attack of the Pod People or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, all these old black and white movies. But it was the beginning of Sci-Fi. And then I got approached by Bill Siegel, who owned Chris Craft Industries, who said, well, we just bought a network called UPN. And I got brought in with Lucy Sulhaney and the president of them. And it was the dream days of Star Trek as well, because I'm on the Paramount lot. I was having, lunch with Gene Roddenberry almost every day. And all at the same time. They were producing Star Trek Next Generation, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, which they used as the flagship for UPN. And for some weird reason, Lucy Sulhaney decided to take the network black. Brandy, Moesha, whatever else. The joke among the black actors was it was called UPN because that stood for Underpaid Negroes. And but it was glorious. I mean, I got to walk around the Paramount lot and literally stumble into Voyager was over on stage 9. I think Enterprise on stage 3. Star Trek Next Generation was going on, so I got to, I got to fence Patrick Stewart at the Renaissance Fair. I got them all tickets to the Renaissance Fair. It was all great fun. So, Sightings became the biggest show on Fox. Then I got brought in on Strange Universe, where I'm pitching Declassified and I get dragged down the hall to meet Paul Roberts and Margaret Barras. Paul Barras and Margaret Roberts. What, Shalou? And we did the pilot. We did the first 5 episodes for Strange Universe. And every single episode was something that I produced because they brought in all these other producers that had worked on shows like 60 Minutes and Inside Edition and crap like that. And none of them knew anything about the phenomenon except me. So we pitched the show, and once again, I went in to get a regular job on the show, and they're like, well, we don't have any money. So I became freelance where I would pitch them an idea and go in and do this. But this led to, let me see, I did the first thing, the fascinating thing was we put together in 89 and 90, we ultrasounded the Dulce Archuleta Mesa and proved scientifically that there is a top secret military base with a nuclear pile at the heart of the Dulce Mesa, which is where the Dulce Wars happened, which is where Level 7 had Nightmare Hall, where they were supposedly crossbreeding human beings and various types of animals, where genetically modified organisms came from through a guy by the name of Dr. Henry Monteith, who figured out a way to crossbreed plants and animals, which was a process that was bought and copyrighted by Monsanto in 1978. Monsanto eventually had to change its name because of lawsuits. I don't know what they call themselves now. Maybe it's Moderna, but I don't know. And then that led to I did rock music videos in the 80s. We did I get paid $5,000 for a concept, but we did Genesis. We did Mike and the Mechanics. We did Jeffrey Osborne. We did all kinds of crazy stuff. And I had an office at MGM. And I'd sold my first script to Buck Rogers. So the UFO contactees stuff, we put together 600 hours of footage with UFO contactees, abductees, scientists, researchers. Somebody had a dog that barked at the UFO. We went out and talked to him. But we had a budget. We had about a $350,000 budget. And we went to Italy. We went to France. We went to Switzerland. We Spent about 2 weeks on Billy Meyer's farm. Well, actually, we were staying close by, but we went and saw Billy virtually every day. Did interviews with Billy, and the only reason we could do that is because Wendell Stevens was with us. And it was kind of weird because Wendell said, well, to our producer, Joe Randazzo, I don't want to talk about the past. Well, I'm sitting behind the camera not knowing anything about this, and Joe just turns to me and goes, so Sean, you want to ask Billy any questions? And I'm like, yeah, what about this? What about that? And of course, I grew up with Dr. Fred Bell. He was always Uncle Fred. I mean, I literally had known Fred Bell since I was 5. And he was friends with my mother. He was a co-founder of the National Health Federation. When I was in college, I actually helped him build a time machine in his backyard. Was there for the birth of Megan Bell, who's now got a great book out called Daughter of Genius. And, went through all the trials and tribulations with Fred from when he was his early 70s contacts with Semyaze, same time she was contacting Fred Bell. And then he claims that he began to contact the Andromedans. And the Andromedans, actually, oddly enough, let me see if I can get this out. This piece of technology he claims was Andromedan technology, and I watched him develop it over the years. And I'm not sure if you get a good look at it or not, but it's a standing DNO helix that's platinum that has diamonds. These are actual diamonds in it, with 2 Fibonacci wave discs, actually, which take the energy, and actually it expands your energy field by about 80 feet or so. It's pretty impressive. And so these are the Andromedans. You couldn't take pictures of them because every time you took a picture of what looked like a human, it came out as a big diamond of light. So I got paid to go talk to these people. We did, when I was working for Hard Copy, we did the first national story on the Phoenix Lights. And we should do an entire show on the Phoenix Lights because the Phoenix Lights are connected to top secret military stuff. They're connected to Heaven's Gate. They're connected to what happened to Art Bell, because when the Heaven's Gate people committed suicide, they tried to blame Art Bell, and Art Bell tried to blame it on remote viewer Courtney Brown because they were claiming that they were, going to meet the mothership, which they thought the Hale-Bopp comet was. So it goes really deep, and we had so much footage on the Phoenix Lights because they returned. The Phoenix Lights were originally March of 96, 97. And then they came back to Phoenix in January of 98. And it was not the main mothership, which was like 22 miles across, but the triangles and the boomerangs returned. And so I convinced the hard copy guys, primarily because I could also get stories about Sedona and stories about Tropicana girls in Las Vegas all at the same time, which is why they gave us the money to go to Arizona the first time.
A friend of mine, which I was trying to do.
Ex-friend of yours, talking about Serpent Boy?
I know. Here's the thing. He had a video that morning. It came right over. All right. I see. This kid left. The Stardust. It had much going on there. Worker Ranch. But he's dead. He's trying to
Why don't you tell people what Skinwalker Ranch really is? You and I both know what it actually is.
Well, see, go ahead. No, I sound like too, but
okay, I've been out there a couple of times, and haven't been allowed on the central property. But you drive past it, and on one side, it's privately owned, and it's all very nice. On the other side of the road, I forget the name of the highway, is the actual Ute Uinta Reservation, which is a complete ghetto. And of course, what's his name? The Vegas billionaire bought it and then sold it again. But he also bought up God, I forget the guy's name. He also bought up Stargate Ranch as well in Sedona. He just went around and what the hell's his name? The guy that owns everything, the billionaire. Sorry, I'm having a brain malfunction here. But what they don't know they're messing with, and I don't understand how this Travis guy, the guy with the southern accent, that's got the doctorate and something, got out there. But what they're dealing with is and this is my opinion. Okay, so I took a pair of dowsing rods out there, and I walked around the fence line, and jumped the fence in a couple of places, and did as much dowsing as I could of the area. On a psychic sensitive viewpoint, there are diamonds. They look like kites. And it's right out of 2001, A Space Odyssey. That if you remember in the sequence where Bowman goes up to the obelisk, and what they don't in the first movie, the Stanley Kubrick movie, they don't tell you how the real book 2001 ends, because in 2010, when Dr. Floyd actually goes to rescue the Discovery, Bowman on tape says, "My God, it's full of stars," and you realize that what it is that the obelisk is a jump gate, is a stargate of some kind. And in his journey to wherever it is he goes, at the end when he winds up aging in this mansion, you see these 7 diamonds of light or energy. That's what these things look like. They look like diamonds, and they're pulsing from the inside outwards, and they're doors. They're dimensional gates of some kind. Now, what they don't want to tell you is that the Skinwalker Ranch sits at the bottom of a butte basically the bottom line is there was a ginormous war on this planet 65 million years ago. And this is all in my books. Matter of fact, it's in the most recent book, The Sumerian War, because my character, Dr. Ted Humphrey, has a conversation with these reptilian beings who we have diplomatic relations with. You begin to realize that the more you get into the reality of all this, that Doctor Who is a documentary, and X-Files was a documentary. I'm not talking about the one with Jodie Whittaker, the terrible chick Doctor Who. Of course, now there's going to be Doctor Who. Now David Tennant's back for a couple episodes. And the next Doctor Who, now, just to throw it in your face, is going to be black and homosexual. So, whatever. Anyway, there was a war 65 million years ago. And 2 weapons were used. One was a gigantic asteroid, meteor, that was thrown at Earth, which is where you get the meteor destruction of Gulf of New Mexico. However, there was a plasma beam weapon that was used because the war was being fought on both Mars and Earth. And the largest structure, actually, you could say, in the solar system is Marinus Valles, which is on Mars. And it's a Grand Canyon that's 7 miles deep and it's wider than the United States. It's about 3,200 miles across. The only reason that canyon is bigger than the Grand Canyon on Earth is because the plasma beam weapon that was used was closer to Mars than it was to Earth. But the Grand Canyon was formed by a plasma beam weapon. It's exactly what you get when you blast soft metal or even sand with an electromagnetic pulse weapon of some kind. It's not from the Colorado River, but at the same time, it explains why you have so much iridium in the Earth and in the atmosphere. Iridium is the byproduct of this massive plasma beam weapon. It killed the dinosaurs. It created a 200-year nuclear winter. You had the Saurians who went underground, and they bifurcated into 2 different species of evolution. One became wise and peaceful and became vegetarians and live mostly in subcontinents underneath the Himalayas and China, which are called Aghartha Major and Aghartha Minor. These subcontinents were proven to exist when the Chinese did massive nuclear testing in 1989. It was reported in Time magazine, by the way, where Time magazine found Aghartha Major and Aghartha Minor in these subcontinents underneath the Gobi Desert and the Himalayas. and claimed that it was because when India actually smashed into Asia, it created these massive, which makes sense because when the mountains came up, it created these massive tunnel systems. The other reptilians, which are known as the Vrildaman, which again, in my book, Sumerian War, which is coming out, it's at the printer now, and is all about a conversation that Ted Humphrey has with the reptilians that live under the Pentagon. We have diplomatic relations with this race of peaceful Saurians, but the Vrildaman, the dark Vrildaman, dark Vril, are in direct contact with the guys you know of as the Illuminati, or the Bilderbergers, or the WAE, and they're the ones that eat human flesh. They're the ones that can take over the bodies of human beings. They're the ones that have provided the dark forces and lords on this planet with everything underground: oil, gold, jewels, everything else. And again, the extraterrestrials, as Tommy has pointed out over and over and over again, they're not our friends. They come here. The Sumerians, which come from Aldebaran, set up the Babylonian civilization. Then they tried to set up the Third Reich, another 1,000-year Reich, if you will. But they were coming every 23,000 years. They would pick up the best of their genetic experiments. They would destroy the planet or everything else, and then reseed the planet. Now, there seems to be different levels of evolution, like Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal or whatever. The reason there's no missing link between any of these is because the Sumerians, or the Aldebaranians, if you will, which were actually called the Iligan way back in the day, when the Iligan, and there was a war between three factors. There was the reptilians, there was the Iligan, Aldebaran, and another more mysterious race that came from another dimension. So, which I don't have that much information on. But when they fought this war, and it ended with the meteor and the destruction of Astra at that time, which is also called Marduk, which was the planet that was the asteroid belt, and they destroyed it to primarily create these massive meteors for them to be able to hurl. They hit Mars with 12 of them, which is why Mars is the way it is today, and they only hit Earth with one, along with the plasma beam weapon. So, and by the way, where did I get all this? I get all this because I go to these scary lawyers' office, and this lady lawyer, she's called Lorraine in the books, makes me sign these NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that says I can't tell you who this doctor is or who his wife is, who's still living in Russia, and they're still living people in all these programs. So what I decided to do to not get shot in the head was to novelize these books in such a way that you can buy them as cute little science fiction if you want. But they've been called the best series of novels since Ray Bradbury, Frank Herbert, Isaac Asimov, the best book series since Ian Fleming's James Bond. Carrie Cassidy has said it's the greatest release of Black World top secret information. So when Tommy is telling you all this stuff about triangular ships, all of which are ours, by the way, they're either called Vipers, Reapers, or you've all heard about the TR-3Bs. We're way beyond that now. We're up to like TR-11s now. But these are huge triangular craft that are invisible. And they or they have a cloaking device. In other words, they can project like a TV screen on the bottom. They can just project what you see on the top of them, which just makes them invisible. SR, they used to have the SR series. We had the SR-71 Blackbird. Of course, they had the SR-72, 73. The Blackbird was flying at Mach 3 to Mach 5 in 62 and 63. And then the Blackbird was retired in 78, I think. Which shows you that all military technology is, you have consumer technology that's about 3 to 5 years ahead of what we have. You have military technology that's approximately 15 to 20 years ahead. But there is another level of technology that is a complete bifurcation of humanity, a whole new evolutionary stream, if you will. That is technology that's some 30 to maybe 50 years ahead of us. Again, like the shuttle that we saw out at Area 51, the 1,600-foot shuttle, that now they're developing Mach 5 hypersonic jets that they'll have by 2030. And that by 2030, they claim that they'll have shuttles like this coming back and forth between here and the moon. We do have a moon base. It's at the northern pole of the moon where there is water and ice, and it's called Cape Malabar Radio. So I got all of these journals, and I published the first 3 before the feds came at me with. Again, it was completely Kafkaesque. I was being charged for nothing, for crimes against Title 18 and the United States. And even though there was no tax fraud, there was nothing fraudulent, no victims, no monetary loss to anybody, I'm like, well, you gotta have a victim. And it's like, well, you offended the United States. And apparently the IRS, by filing their paperwork to get a return from them and helping other people do it. And I said, then I would like the United States on the stand. I would like the IRS on the stand. I want them on the stand by 4 o'clock tomorrow so that I have somebody to cross-examine. Because if I don't have a witness or anybody other than this bitch, Valerie Makowicz, this district attorney, making shit up, what am I doing here? And again, unfortunately, I couldn't really defend myself an attorney because the attorneys are all part of their system. And then I would have had to play the game their way. And as it was, all the alternative media people, like Charles Miller, who's a complete criminal, did nothing but steal my money and then put me even worse in a jam and say, oh, it's your fault because you're not right with Jesus, or you need to say the Catholic Rosary properly. And came up with a bunch of reasons why none of their stuff worked. So, and as of now, the only thing I'm doing is that I am the de jure. I'm actually the sheriff, the de jure sheriff of Orange County. I know, it sounds weird, but all the police and the governor and everybody, there is no de jure government anymore. It's all corporate. So the de jure offices have all been vacated. So I'm actually the, I got a badge and everything. But I'm the de jure sheriff of Orange County now. So that's how I got the books. And now there's going to be 9 books in the series. But if you want to know why $8 trillion disappeared in 2008, if you want to know that we've already fought wars against the Aldebaranians or the Iligan, we've even fought, I guess, a time-ending Ragnarok Book of Revelation battle against the Alpha-Draconians, which is why the timeline, as you know it, is completely different. Because the timeline's been shifted, so nothing works. It's one of the reasons why Gordon Michael Scallion, who was the Mac Daddy of prophecy, psychic, earthquake predictors, suddenly in 1993 went completely off the rails and is now considered the worst prophet of the 20th century because he stuck to a timeline that he saw, that Dolores Cannon saw with all her fraudulent work into Nostradamus, that my studies of Nostradamus can't see, and all these guys, and even the Great Pyramid of Giza, all went completely off the rails about 2005, and there's a reason for that. And again, the only help that I can see us getting from any of these extraterrestrial forces is that Earth supposedly belongs to a greater galactic force of 48 planets, a confederation, if you will, and that if we don't evolve to a certain level, then none of them get to evolve to a certain level. So that's the only help that we're being given. There will be an appearance of all of them in 2034, which I've seen. And all they do is appear for one day, clean the atmosphere, put the Earth back into the orbit that it's supposed to be in, and then disappear. And that is one of the major predictions of the Great Pyramid of Giza, that there is another Messiah coming, and that he or she will manifest somehow. Either they're alive now, or somehow obtain God consciousness at some point on October 31st of 2039. Got any questions, Tommy? You just disappeared.
I'm right here. That sounds sad. I mean, I wanted to cover 2 things. You were talking about Robert, right?
I think you need to back off the microphone because you sound like you sound
Microphone 3 feet away.
okay. Whatever you just did, fix
How's
it.
that?
Okay.
I had a problem. It's something we I mean, part of the program, but Robert had to join attention on the before he saw attention. But John,
Thank you, Robert Bigelow. That's the guy. That's the rich guy that bought everything.
right. Well, he sold when he came out and she walked money, and John goes, times, and he just. But I Mr. Timid for a year and a half. Nobody will get. They're afraid. They go out now with their truth. Basically, I don't. Well, I want to tell you. I want to remind everybody. Sean was on years ago, and he asked my help to come out with him to go to every and just see the UFO. It was Christmas. Montel Williams is always out there. He goes out there. It was all of course general. There's nothing going on out there. And he did that. I mean, people can pick up so much. It's amazing. Like I said, I've been going a long time. Listening to the personality. So we ended up about a year and a half. He had something going on. He's still going to put a book out first in the government. Sean, every few he told me some interesting things that, but you know, when I say with fear, I mean that I know. I just listened to the first guy. I just listened and my friend, sorry, not so. You know, I'm not worried. But I worry about I was do you think when the government crashing more?
Okay, something I can only hear pieces of what you're saying. Do I think the government does what? Okay, so here's the thing about the government. You know, they've changed the name of UFOs now to UTEPs. You know, unidentified UAPs, I think, unidentified aerial phenomena. If I have to see Luis Alessandro one more time with his flying TikTok and his gun camera footage, it's just like, what? There's so much. For example, if you turn on the Travel Channel has more good stuff every day. They've got Paranormal Caught on Tape. They've got Ghost Hunters. They've got Ghost Experience. They've got The Unexplained. So much better footage of UFOs and whatever else. But here's what's going on. I mean, I don't know why people don't understand this. Thank you. DARPA. There we go. Defense Intelligence. Or that's DIA actually, and then you have DARPA. You should get the book that has all the black patches on it. There's an actual book. Thank you. There's a lot of static going on there. Now you sound okay, Tommy. Speak.
Yeah. You just muted.
Hi, Sasha.
Hey there, Sean.
I can hear you. You sound fine.
Good deal.
Let me finish my sentence. My sentence was, so the guys at Area 51 wanted 89,000 more acres, and this was when they wanted to expand their border, and the state of Nevada said no, and they said, screw you, we're just going to take it. And they did, and they just expanded their border. Now, again, what they were doing is that they were cutting into the territory of the sovereign state of Nevada. They were taking Bureau of Land Management land, and at the same time, denying access to a fellow that owned the Groom Lake silver mine, which is actually within this new border they're putting together. So Harry Reid, and by the way, they just renamed McCarran International Airport the Harry Reid Airport, which I think is a travesty. He had congressional hearings, and he dragged up the commandant of Nellis Air Force Base, and he said, "What the hell?" He said, "Why? What gives you the right to just take 89,000 acres of BLM territory and territory that belongs to the sovereign state of Nevada?" And he said, "Well, we answer to a higher authority than you, Senator Reed." And Reed said, "Really? You want to tell me what's a higher authority than the Congress of the United States?" And the commandant said, "Well, we'd be happy to talk to you about that outside this hearing and behind closed doors." And which they did. I guess Harry Reid got a tour up there, and everybody goes up there and they give him a little refresher of some pine-scented Kool-Aid, which is some kind of mind control element that they give him, and they're singing a different tune every time. But he said, "What goes on?" And this is Harry Reid, who says to the commandant of Nellis, "What goes on at Area 51?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "I don't have clearance to get up there. I don't have clearance to even set foot on that base." He says, "You have to have at least a Q-16 clearance to even set foot on the base. And mine, the President of the United States, goes up to like Q8. So that's when you begin to learn. Now, my biggest question was, why is it that you have a military reservation that takes up the entire middle of the state of Nevada? Now, remember, the federal government owns 89% of the state of Nevada. They own 92% of the state of Utah. In fact, if you go west of the Mississippi, the federal government owns over 80%. It's upwards of 89% in certain places of the land west of the Mississippi. They are the single largest landholder. And again, if you're at a post office or a federal courthouse, you're in the United States. You're in federal territory. You step outside that courthouse, and you're now back in the sovereign state of California or the sovereign state of Hawaii. And this is a crime because I know Tommy lives in Hawaii, but we had a bunch of United States citizens move to Hawaii and then simply decide that Hawaii was going to be a state of the United States. When you had U.S. citizens voting, it's exactly like having Mexicans move up from Mexico and then vote that, say, Southern California or LA County is all going to be part of Mexico. Because you had to have the actual native sovereign Hawaiians vote on whether or not they wanted to become part of the United States. So my big question was, why the hell are they testing these top secret UFOs right over our heads? I mean, I was on a road, and one of these things almost hit my car with my friend, and we got irradiated by it. It's probably what this cancer is all about. But we got irradiated by this thing. We were really sick for about 3 weeks. And these things would fly super low. They'd come up over the hill, and they'd fly about 50 to 100 feet off the ground. All of it underneath the umbrella of Bald Mountain, which went up to the top. There was some kind of viewing facility where helicopters came and went from the top of Bald Mountain. But why? And, of course, it was because every time they flew above a certain ceiling, they would have to explain to the people at Nellis what the hell they were up to every Wednesday night. So, of interest, you have a bunch of people sued the government. 49 people were dying of cancer because they were...
Hello?
Tommy?
Sorry, I just had the headset on.
I can hear you now.
Oh, wow.
You're perfect. You're not.
You're coming good.
I told you it was the headset the whole time, or the microphone the whole time.
Just for a quick second, you mentioned jurisdictions. So there are two factions of the government. There's a public one and then there's a secret one. So my question is there anyone or anything that is monitoring or watching? It's like the saying, who watches the watchers?
Well, okay, so you have Luis Elizondo. I can never say his name right. With his unidentified aerial phenomenon, who claims that he works for a Pentagon program that has all of $22 million. Oh boy, which is basically lunch money for these guys, out of a military budget every year of over $750 billion. I think this year was $762 billion. Of which, when you understand how much money that really is, that's the budgets of all 50 states combined, which is the military budget of the United States. And per year, by the way. And we've been spending this for 70 years. And people wonder how we have a secret space program and ginormous hyperspeed jet tubes underground and, a humongous underwater submarine bay under Malibu, which everybody's trying to say is extraterrestrial. It's not. It was built by the military. So one hand is watching what the other hand is doing. This $22 million is trying to explain what the black world that's explained, it's all laid out in my books, in my Sands of Time books, that has developed probably the most dangerous weapon in the universe, which is what's known as time runner technology. And time runner technology allows you to teleport both men and large machines, along with communicate with, and they have these little watches they call gravity watches. Actually, they look like smart watches, and but it's a subspace communication where you can communicate with anyone, anything, anywhere in the universe, mind you, not just the galaxy, but the universe. So time runner tech, which is not allowed to be used on this planet, it's one of the things that brought us to the attention of the of the Galactic Federation, if you will. Because if you used it here, I mean, you could basically teleport an atomic bomb to the top of Vladimir Putin's desk if you wanted to. So, I mean, it would destroy the entire military-industrial complex as we know it. I don't know how else to explain it to you, but it's what allowed us to win the Sumerian War and allowed us to win the Draco War as well. We managed to use this technology to collapse gigantic voids in space, which will eventually allow us to travel through the galaxy using these same voids, because the laws of physics don't operate the same in these voids. But that's and by the way, the equation for the unified field theory, which makes all this science possible, I have a copyright on. I copyrighted it. I patented it. I was trying to see if I could get a hold of somebody like Elon Musk. Hell, I've been trying to contact Michio Kaku to just give him this equation because I don't understand it. I mean, it's way beyond me. But it was given to me, and it was supposedly the last thing that Albert Einstein saw in his office at Princeton, that he wrote this down on a notepad, and once he saw God in mathematical form, he fell over dead, and they pulled it out from underneath his head.
Okay.
I'm not sure that answers your question, that one part of the military is watching what the other part of the supposed military is doing. And it's... Yeah.
Well, I want to get back to a couple of things. So, I don't know how long you survive on here, but
I'm trying, Tommy. I'm trying.
I'm trying to... I don't know if you've talked to Steve Greer. Well,
I have no good things to say about Stephen Greer, so I should probably not even speak.
I don't have one about it either, but
all I can tell you is I took him into Unsolved Mysteries, and he embarrassed me. He embarrassed me in front of my producers in front of John Cosgrove and Terry Muir. He made me look like an asshole in front of them because he was such a jerk. And they literally, he got up out of the room to go to the bathroom, and Terry looked at me and said, "So the big question is," and they asked me the same thing about Billy Meyer, "are they assholes before the UFOs get a hold of them, or are they taken on board the ships and turned into assholes by the aliens?" And Greer tried to sell us, tried to pretend that he had footage that we owned on a case called The Guardian that we were working on out of Coos Bay, Ontario, Canada. So...
Well, basically, he's got a lot of money. He's building it to train people with aliens.
I know it's $5,000 for a weekend to practice what he calls CE5, for you to basically get on a ship, communicate with them, and have a nice chat with them while they turn you into barbecue.
Well, I just watched last night. Cal.
How who?
Cal. It's a Basically, there's hundreds of pages near
Hey, Tommy, you're echoing again.
You're breaking up again, man. This entire broadcast is like this.
They're
You
playing
were okay for a second. What did you do? You put your headphones on.
anything. They're playing.
Thank you, Sasha. I look. He's been like this. It's
I'm sorry.
It's like he's died or dead.
Refrain from.
It's not me,
No,
man.
I'm just trying to make sure the audio is clear so people who are watching can understand what all of us are saying.
I tried everything. Who did the program? I couldn't hear the beginning.
How many times have you used this SteamYard thing? Because again, if we did this just on Skype, we could add video, we could add audio. If we'd done it on Zoom,
I never had problems. So never.
okay.
So Sasha, you have problems like this?
Do I have a problem with that?
So I said, did we have problems? Like I just showed for 2 years. I never had this problem.
No, I mean, you used to have issues, the screen freezing, but
No, my just so free. It's not new.
right. This is unusual. You usually don't have any audio issues like this.
I tried to switch to it, but what do you want to think? Zoom or YouTube? Next time.
Talking to me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. It's because this is an abortion. I can understand me fine. I can hear me fine. I can hear Sasha fine, but I can't hear you fine. It sounds like you're the one with throat cancer. Okay, I guess we're
Try one more time.
Anyway, Sean, it's nice to meet you. I meant to tell you that.
It's a pleasure and an honor to meet you. Are you really with the
Yeah,
Defense Intelligence Agency?
I remember listening to you from the Art Bell shows.
Boy, that's long ago, man. Apparently, I'm the only one left, and I'm the grand old man of it all, which makes me a little uncomfortable. But it's just been out there trying to press the frontiers of human understanding. Not as long as Tommy, but been a while.
I came in kind of late in the show. You mentioned something about 2008, all the money going away. Where did that money go, by the way?
Well, it went into I guess you could call it the Secret Space Force. What happened is that, I mean, I can tell you exactly how it actually went down at 9:06 a.m. on September 11th, just to give you an idea. And I think Bush originally was going to try to blame it on the Iraqis, but whatever. Anyway, they used the current basis of artificial intelligence now was developed in the 80s by William Hamilton and a company called Inslaw. And Hamilton came up with something, and I first heard of it from Danny Casolaro, who was a friend of mine, who lived here in Hermosa Beach and was writing for Computer Times magazine and did a lot of stuff on TRW before it was bought by Northrop Grumman. And it was called the PROMIS software, the Prosecutor's Office Management Information System. And the first person they used it on was the Shah of Iran. And the Shah of Iran was convinced by Henry Kissinger to abdicate the throne, which he never should have done. And he was the richest man in the world at that time. He was worth $30 billion. And he died flat broke in an apartment in Cairo because the Bushes had managed to use the PROMIS artificial intelligence software to backdoor all of his bank accounts and steal all his money. So the PROMIS 2 software comes along. And by the way, during the Clinton administration, when Clinton was basically just handing the entire United States military-industrial complex to the Chinese and allowing Chinese generals to sleep in the Lincoln bedroom. And I had personal experience with this because, I went to go sailing on my dad's boat, and there's a bunch of these goddamn Chinese generals. I mean, the guys who, murdered 4,000 people at Tiananmen Square. And TRW is selling them missiles. And they're on my dad's boat. And I threw a tantrum and I said, what the fuck, man? You're doing business with these guys? These missiles are pointed at us, right? And he's like, giving me this nonsense about, his supposed right-wing Republican bullshit about, oh, well, it's all international commerce and, it's just, it goes, weapons were always sold at that time. But the Promise 2 there was a bunch of fires at Los Alamos. And under cover of those fires, we shipped numerous versions of the Promise software to the Chinese. And by the way, Bill Hamilton found out that the Reagan administration has stolen his software when he got a call from the Canadians who wanted to know whether or not the software was available in French for Quebec. And he's like, well, how did you get it? And it turns out he got him through an Israeli spy named Rafi Attain, who was also the handler of the Falcon and the Snowman, and also the handler of Jonathan Pollard, who should have been executed. But anyway, long story short, the current AI you have today was all developed from the Promise software. And the Promise software was used, the Promise 2 software was used on 9/11, September 11th of 2008, to basically backdoor the various financial markets and systems. Now, the good news is that when you take losses that great, the system itself is taught to shut down. And it did. And had it not, they would have stolen, as it is, they got away with almost $8 trillion. But it would have stolen almost 14. There were rumors it was high as 20. But I heard $14 trillion. Could have stolen that out of the system, and you would have seen the complete collapse of Western civilization. All of this was engineered by Dick Cheney, G.W. Bush, Bush Sr., and a lot of this money was used for the secret space program. Basically used to fight a war with the beings from Aldebaran who were on their way here, who had set up Babylon. Interestingly enough, we still lived under the slavery of their Babylonian banking system and their debt system. And they'd set up Rome, which was another Reich that lasted almost 800 years. And then they tried to set up the Third Reich. And I have a whole book about that called the Vril Diaries, about how these 5 beautiful, long-haired supermodel women were channeling ETs and giving the Germans, top secret flying saucer technology, which was all developed at that time by BMW Messerschmitt. And so there you go. So it's and now it's going to basically take out middle management. It's going to take out it's going to make lawyers obsolete, doctors obsolete. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I was working on a book on it with Ryan Velli called The AI Apocalypse, about why you have guys like Bill Gates and Elon Musk saying maybe 5% of the population will survive AI. But that's where it all comes from the Promise software, which is Bill Hamilton and the Inslaw Company. And by the way, the Reagan administration, after they stole it from him, they trumped up a bunch of charges, a bunch of child pornography charges, loaded up his computer with child porn, and tried to prosecute him for that. And he beat it, but was never reimbursed for the technology that the Reagan administration and Ed Meese stole. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So it went into the Space Force, and it went into fighting these wars, and it's gone into every triangular craft that you see is us. Those are the TR, it stands for Terrestrial Reconnaissance. Those are the TR3 through, I think, 12 now. And we saw one of them out at Area 51, and it was huge. There was a gigantic triangle that, unbeknownst to us, had been sitting in the sky all night, and just before dawn, this triangle just moved across the sky, blotting out the stars behind it. And it was one of those fook moments, when everybody just looked up and went completely crazy. So a lot of people had nervous breakdowns after going to Area 51 because they just couldn't handle the stuff that they'd seen.
I did a show.
Hey, it's Aquaman. He's back.
Sean.
Yes.
We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube.
Okay.
And we're on Twitter.
Okay.
So, but
as of now, you haven't been.
no, we've been on it the whole time.
Okay.
Facebook tried to block me.
Okay.
They banned me right on YouTube. YouTube says I got 1 million before they take over me.
So we have an interview where I can talk, but you can't. Is that what?
Right.
All right.
Look. We'll try to set this up again. I'll make sure we're different. Because
I can't thank you enough for being one of the few guests that's not completely full of BS that's actually been on your show, and I understand why you're not very popular with all these with the woo fairy people.
Luazando, I must have texted him about 150 times. He goes, "Oh, I love my people. I love the people that watch me." And I said, "Why can't you get back to me? Give me 5 minutes of my life." But he's I think he's trying to cover and do it. Look, I don't want to keep him up. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I had you. We'll work this out later. So sorry. That's my way. But it's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so far away. I don't get to come have adventures with you in New York anymore. With you and
you gotta come
with you and the Serpent Boy. I guess I got to come to Hawaii, right?
You gotta come to Hawaii.
Okay.
We'll set something up in Hawaii. All right.
Yeah, why don't you ever? You should have a convention in Hawaii and have all your people come.
Well, you know, I want to talk about lady in Hawaii doing what they used to do.
Okay.
But she takes them out at night for $100. But then she has a class how to cook to black federation in
Well, I would definitely, for your lady friend, they have there's a powdered liver powder and kelp mixture you can get online now. And there's of course, just kelp pills and the George's Ice Aloe juice it was developed out of a white ice aloe plant in New Mexico as the only known cure for radiation poisoning. It was actually developed for the guys on the Manhattan Project who were getting burned and getting all kinds of weird radiation stuff from because they used to think it was fun to take a couple of pieces of uranium and shove them together until they achieve critical mass, and then they break them apart with a screwdriver. And they don't tell you that the secret of the atomic bomb was keeping it from exploding. And that's a whole other German tech thing. It wasn't until we actually got the German scientists that showed us how to make the atomic bomb. So you're about to see this brand new propaganda movie come out with Christopher Nolan, with Cillian Murphy and the Manhattan Project, which is just as big a propaganda movie as Dunkirk was. Because Dunkirk, Hitler, under the guns of German panzers, he let the entire British army escape. Then he sent his best friend, Rudolf Hess, who parachuted into Scotland with a peace deal for England, to say, look, the United States and England team up with us to go beat the Russians because they're the real bad guys. Let's go kill them. Then we can fight. And, of course, Rudolf Hess wound up spending the rest of his life in Spandau prison. But it's the untold story of World War II. They will never tell you.
Well, there's so many people out there playing games on UFO crazy, which is wrong. The worst part about those experiences are all the people in the whole world that have been by aliens.
Well, the challenge, the real challenge is, Tommy, is that, again, I don't think the people that don't believe in UFOs are in the minority now, because the people believe are something like 75%, because you can turn on Travel Channel any day of the week and see crazy UFO stuff. As a matter of fact, the funny thing about Travel Channel is it's UFOs, it's haunted houses, it's demon possession, it's Bigfoot. It's a channel about travel that tells you all the reasons why you should never go outside, ever. And I think it's pretty much been proven in the fact that now everybody has a camera walking around in their back pocket. And so it's not just your drunk Uncle George at the picnic who says he saw it. Here's the problem. The problem is nobody is talking about what they have to say. Because what I discovered with the UFO Contactees documentary is that every contactee you talk to, everyone, has a different version of the universe, a different religion, a different cosmology, a different science, a different something. And the real problem is if I'm in contact with ETs and they're telling me what's going on, and suddenly that contact stops, it's kind of hard to go back working at Denny's. It's kind of hard to go back to doing just a regular job when you're a UFO god, like somebody like Billy Meyer is, as an example, who was in touch with Semyaze and then claimed Semyaze got hit in the head. And so now he's in touch with Ptah, I think, who's her father. And now he's giving the Enoch prophecies or the Enoch prophecies. Because, of course, Billy's the reincarnation of every person that's ever had a contact with UFOs throughout time. Billy Meyer apparently was. So he says, including Jesus.
Yeah, I know. His talent, Jamad, a horrible book. It was, but that's
Okay.
look, this is horrible. Well, it was almost. I'm sorry, stuff, but we'll do this, right? And I'll be in touch as soon as I can.
Okay, well, let's do it on Skype or Zoom or something that you know is
All
going to
right, that sounds good.
And then I can have a background that's all pretty and looks like a spaceship.
Yeah, me too.
It's not
Me
my
too.
kitchen with my cat wandering around in the background.
All right.
All right. Hey, Sasha, it was nice meeting you too, buddy.
Yeah, you too. Tommy, thanks for having me. You guys take
You had
care.
that going on too. All right, well, look, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sticking around.
Wait. 1 second. One second. So, strangeuniverseradio.com, strangeuniverseradio.com. All the Sands of Time books are up. We've got everything in stock. Sands of Time 1, Sands of Time 2, Sands of Time 3, which is the Isomer Protocol, Sands of Time Time Runner Act 1, Time Runner Act 2, Antebellum, Interlude, which is all about the Vrildamen. This is a fascinating story. It's got beautiful naked girls and Nazis and UFOs and everything you could ever want. And then book 3, or I'm sorry, Act 3, which is the Sumerian War, is at the printer now. So we'll have it within the next 2 weeks. And then the next book after that will be another 2-part book. So this will be books 8 and books 9. Will be the Alpha Draconian War, the Draco War, parts 1 and 2. All true stories. And again, one of the reviews was, if this is all just science fiction, then Sean is the greatest science fiction writer ever. And if it's not, then we should be afraid. We should be very, very afraid. I think that's one of the best reviews.
Well, Sean, I put your audio, but it was stripped out of my computer.
What? Okay,
Seriously, I got to listen to it.
Okay, I'll send you hard copies. I'll send them all to you again. That's all you had to do was say,
All right,
Tommy, your money's no good here, Tommy. Your money's no good.
Love you, Sean.
Okay, love you too. Bye.
Bye. All right, people. Can you hear me? Anybody? What's going on now? Hello? Can anybody hear me? Yeah, but can you hear me talking right now? Oh, really? Well, that's cool because I can't hear myself either, but that's fine. All right, I wanted to get involved with a couple of things Sean said, but I will bring him again. He's a good friend of mine, so we will do it on Skype or Zoom. I'm trying to think which way I could get more people into it. Probably Zoom. I'm not sure. I don't know how many people Skype let you take in, but I'll work on that for the next time. There's a few notes that I wanted to get into, like, because of Richard Dolan, I've been on his site, the Skinwalker Ranch, I'm on their site. One's $10, one's $8. I mean, I'm spending all this money, and I can't even talk to one person there, which is pretty lame. And Lou Elizondo, a person, a year and a half, I've been trying to get in touch with him, and he won't reply to anything I send him. I said, just give me 5 minutes of your life. You're not going to lose anything. You might learn something. But, people with an ego or people working for the government cannot say things. So I think Lou Elizondo is completely controlled by the government because he keeps saying that. Oh, I can say certain things, but he can't say the truth. So if there's any questions, please put them in there. I talk to Sean as much as I can. He's luckily I get him when he can talk because sometimes he can't talk for a while. He's doing a little better. Realize when they let him out of jail, they let him out because he was dying, or they wouldn't have let him out. But like I asked them if they're coming after him or they will be after him or anything. But I remember when I was watching Jesse Ventura, I was friends with Fred Bell, who he was talking about. Let me just show you real fast. His book is the second best book, and it's really important in the UFO world. This is it, people. Fred Bell. He was killed, found in a hotel room 2 days after he did the show with Jesse Ventura. And the first thing Jesse Ventura said to him, "Aren't you afraid of the government?" He says, "No, I work for them." And he says, "What about me?" He goes, "Oh, you're mainstream. They can't come after you." 2 days later, Fred Bell was found dead in the hotel room. His family has his company going. I mean, if you look at that thing in the back, the nuclear reactor that Sean was wearing is on my device up there. All right. I bring my meteor out when I try to talk to aliens, not talk to them, but try to get chips. I'm just trying to get some nice pictures. But people, this is the real truth here. I don't bring anybody on this show that I don't know personally or in detail anymore. I brought a multi-billionaire on my show, and I was sorry I did. Tina was like asking all kinds of questions, but he's building a base just for aliens to land on. Seriously. All right. Now, once I found that out, I said, I don't want you back on. But I just found this woman in Hawaii. Somebody said, "Oh, I know a lady that has a UFO group." I said, "Wow, I need people to come out with me." And then when I called her up, "Oh, I charge $100 to go out at night." I said, "How about?" She goes, "Well, I teach classes on how to get on the Galactic Federation ship." People. Now, I'm a little different than anybody else in the UFO world. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. Sean's always been my friend. We don't agree on everything. But here's the problem. Most people deal with other people. Those other people are programmed. All right? Like you said, everybody has a different story. When an experiencer comes out and says they had a good trip, it's a lie. It's a program. When Corey Goode came out, he said, well, they showed him videos of the past, present, and future. He said the United States, the world was going to be destroyed, in 2 years? All right. Cavalacius from Australia said the same thing. He was working with the race. And I warned him because he was going out to the Yosemite Ranch with James Gillen. I said, be careful out there. The energy's super bad. Well, he went out there. His whole story changed. And he kind of disappeared from the UFO world. Now, I don't agree with anybody in the UFO world. Sean's my only friend in it right now. Tina is a really close person to me. But nobody else will speak to me directly because I will challenge them. Because I was next to an alien. I was next to a ship. I was next to a Bigfoot. I work with deities. I work with angels. I'm not trying to brag. But when somebody says, well, this deity took me up into Mars and we had dinner up there. Really? The stories get crazier. And what they say is so much from the truth. Not one of them has proof of anything they say or anything beneficial. Now, like I said, I watched a special last night about these Buddhist people up in this Tibetan temple, and they're all chanting, trying to talk to aliens. They go into deep meditation, and they get information. The one of them prophesies a major event, and another one prophesies another major event. But they're talking about the end of the world. Obviously, Sean said we're going to go on. I'm not going to go into his details because I think he said in 2030, not 39, but later, 45, somewhere around there, the goddess comes down. But that's kind of what it says in the Bible in Revelations, when the deity, this female deity comes down and destroys all the darkness. But we're not going to make it that far. The New World UN Agenda 21 is in full swing. I don't think we're going to make it up until 2030. AI will destroy half of the planet. The other thing is that nobody's talking about AI is not a machine. It's an entity. Aliens created it a long time ago. You will see that proven within the next year. I promise you that. All right. I know the details already, but it will be proven. It thinks as one entity. All right. It's not like, well, this computer knows this computer knows that. No, it's not like that. So realize aliens are about 10, they could be 1,000, 2,000 years way in advance than us. You heard what Sean said about them in the beginning, the wars they had, what they were using. So they're much more advanced in a lot of ways. The only thing is, not one race, not one species of anything can talk about God. I'm probably one of the few people that will talk about God on this planet. I challenged Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, the Dalai Lama, and the Pope. I said, any one of you want to talk about God? I mean, none of them believe in God, really. I mean, the Pope mentions God or Jesus, but again, he knows nothing about Jesus. And he's trying to rewrite the Ten Commandments. He's trying to say heaven, hell doesn't exist. He said a lot of things. These people are being programmed by what controls this lower world. Sean doesn't talk about it. Very few people do. Who controls all these alien races? Everything's controlled at a higher level. Realize that. And Satan's the highest level in this lower realm. Believe it or not. Jesus didn't take him out, so guess what? He can't be taken out. Jesus was the most spiritual being on this planet, and so was Mary Magdalene. But that's my one book. That's my last book. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you that too. I don't know why I wrote it in such big letters, but okay. So I've been involved with a lot of things. I was on a spiritual quest all my life, and I was involved with aliens all my life. And I can tell you, I had 5 death experiences. I spent 45 years traveling out of my body. And I worked with 3 deities. So within that, I learned a lot that you don't learn on planet Earth. No college graduate has a clue about an alien or demons, entities, or any of that. So when they say, oh, I'm the highest degree speaker on this, really? What bubblegum company did they get their degree from? I don't claim to have any degrees. I didn't go to college. All right. So we're at a place. So yeah, now I'm clear. See, that's bizarre. It had to do with him going to his system. I'll tell him when he left it, I was crystal clear. So it wasn't my system. Everybody likes to say, oh, it's your pro. I've been using StreamYard. I was going to Zoom. I was going to every one. He charges a little, no, about the same money. I pay $40 for my StreamYard now. But in the interim, I never had that kind of problem. But for me, my screen blocks out every 10 minutes, goes blank for about 3 or 4 seconds. And I tried everything. It only does it on my computer. It doesn't do it on my laptop. And maybe I should talk onto my laptop to use the show, do the show as well. But people, you got questions, send them to me, hawksblood1aol.com. You want the truth about anything, we'll do a show on it. If there's anybody people out there that want to hear something specific going on, what aliens are doing with humans. I dealt with people all my life. Sean has not. When I was 20, I'm 70. I'm a lot older than Sean. When I was 20, I was working with women that were abducted and lost their children at 8.9 months pregnant, just about before birth. I saw the sonogram, well, the x-ray, whatever they were called, of the baby inside her womb. And the next day she went back and there was nothing there. The hospital said, you couldn't have been pregnant. The same with Tina, this whole thing about what they cut out of her stomach. They can't admit what it is. They told her it was a black mass. And now in the letter she got, but she's been fighting in court to try to get it. Oh, it was a birth control device in her stomach. And she had to go do this big operation for them to cut it out in her stomach. Really? It wouldn't be in her stomach if it was a birth control device, would it? People, you hear a lot of stories. I'm dealing with the highest truth that you can get in the UFO world. My personal experience. Sergeant 18, who I worked with for 6, almost 7 years, we were the top filmers in the United States. We filmed ships of every kind, entities, and then he started going into the smoke thing, which I really didn't agree with. But people, nobody else has filmed the things we did from 96 to 2002. All right. Now, he talked about Strange Universe. I was on the last show they did with Sergeant 18. They cut me completely out. The scene in the beginning, the scene in the end, I'm standing there with everybody, but they cut everything I said out. All right. But they did show his video on TV in 1997 was the last show before it was taken. It was taken off the air the next week of a ship coming along, stopping, shoots 3 ships out, and then shoots out. And that was public. Now, since Sergio and I split up as friends, he took everything that he ever put up on any site anywhere down, including the video that was left online since 1996, 7, of Strange Universe. But I have a copy of it. All right. So I can prove it to somebody if somebody wants to see it. But the problem is, people, men in black are good and bad. There's the government men in black and alien men in black. I'm not going to go into that in detail. Not enough time, not enough places to fit it into this program. But I'm crystal clear. Why is that? All right. I am sorry that it's been messed up in the beginning. Sean is an incredible genius. He could talk all day. I'm not saying he can't. He knows what he's talking about. He remembers. I couldn't believe he couldn't remember a name. He's a genius. He could read a book in 2 hours and memorize it. Seriously. I'm not going to go into all his life, but he's an incredible person. I wouldn't say he doesn't have an ego. Anybody that's mainstream has to have some form of ego. I'm not mainstream because I don't have an ego, and I don't lie, and I can't tell a lie. All right? If I lied to people, I could be number one making millions of dollars because I would stop them from getting abducted and getting programmed and everything else that's happening now. I was doing a UFO conference next to Area 51 with 3 people. One of them was on Ghostbusters, the series that was on TV. He claimed he worked with the Nordics. And during the conference, I challenged him on it. He goes, well, they did a lot for me. I said, what'd they do? Well, he was in a car accident. And he was taken out of the car. The car burst in flames or something. I said, okay, what else did they do? He couldn't name one other thing. I said, you're working with a race and they're helping you all the time. And you can't come up with a reason. But the woman that came, I had her on my show a year later, but she worked for the government. She was the one that monitored the ships coming in and out. They took her to the moon, but she wasn't allowed out of the spaceship. There was an alien on a spaceship that threatened the army people because they actually sexually abused her on the ship as well. But she was missing for a month. When we were doing this conference, she was crying all the time, and I was supposed to do hypnosis with her, but she wouldn't even come out of the room until she was doing her talk. And her boyfriend was with her. But people say, I want to be on a ship. I want it. No, you don't. Sean realizes there's no good aliens. Very few people understand that. Oh, there's good and bad in everything. Well, you wouldn't be coming to planet Earth if you were a good race and not do anything about it. All these people that talk to aliens, no matter what supposedly happens, what are they doing for mankind? I will tell you, I might as well finish the story in short. Well, Sergio and I worked up at Montague, New Jersey, and that's where Tesla worked with DuPont. And that's where they flooded the city, and ships were going in and out of the reservoir for 9 months. All right. But that was the creation of time travel. That was when the Philadelphia experiment happened, they put a rip in the R. It's basically what I would call it. They say a vortex, but it was the space between the physical realm and the astral plane. When that happened, yeah, I'm sure they didn't. But when that happened, it allows, and it's still allowing, the government cannot close it. All right, it's allowing weird entities and all this weird stuff coming into our reality that shouldn't be here. All right, people think everything's going to go along. Good aliens are going to come save us. They are not. They've been here for 15,000 years, 100,000 years, whatever. Atlantis was 100,000 years ago. All right, they were the first race on this planet. All right, they were brought here by Thoth, not the storybook Thoth, the Atlantean, but basically he was given the permission by the Council of Nine to take 9 races here. And right before it was destroyed, 5 races left. I can go into that, but I know you're not going to believe half of the story anyway. The blue race, the green race, the purple race, the crystal race, they all left. They attained awareness. That's the only reason why people come here. But now aliens are reincarnating into humans, people. Not we're reincarnating into aliens, because they don't have awareness of any spiritual truth. Technology has nothing to do with spirituality. And I try to explain that to some people. They don't understand the difference. Oh no, science is never going to explain God. What, 2 years ago they came out, we found the God gene. God doesn't come into this lower realm for any reason. It doesn't allow its light and sound comes down here, but it doesn't. Why would it want to come into hell? All right. We always got a comedian. I'm not a comedian. I was never a comedian lover. I didn't like comedians ever. All they do is put people down. All right. Make fun of people. Watch ridiculousness on MTV. All these crazy people in a day. You can't believe what ignorant stuff they do. All right. So what I'm going to say is, you want the truth. This is a show to come on, to listen to. But if you have any stories, anything true that you know, any people that might want to tell a story, let them call me on Skype, Hawksblood11, or email me. If I believe them and we can work it out, I'll bring them on. I just don't want to bring strangers on. I mean, in 12 years, when I was doing shows with TJ Morris, we had one person come on for a half hour talking about his UFO experience, and then said, "F you people." It was a great story, wasn't it? So, I don't have that kind of person. Now, Carrie Cassidy, Sargel 18 and I did a show on air for 9 months. Every week we showed pictures of UFOs. And near the end, they were going to charge me $50 a show. And I said, I can't afford it. I don't make money doing a show. So Sargel and me, I said, look, we have to stop the show. And then we had a fight at the end of that as well because of Sean David Morton. But people, Carrie Cassidy never listened to one of our shows. On top of that, we had about 60, 70 people in our chat room every time we did the show. We had 1,200 people hit us the next morning. We were the top of the line on that time frame. If we would have kept going, we probably still could have been the top. But, ego always gets in the way. If somebody has a strong ego, it kind of interferes with everything that's going to happen. All right. Sargel's ego was powerful. I mean, that was with him 6.5 years. Every night we would be out filming UFOs and stuff because, well, I'm going to bring ships to the White House. I believed him. He was a psychic. He worked for the Army and all that. And I believed him. But guess what? It never happened. I could tell you, Star Fuentes gave him a check for $45,000 and says, if you get an alien, bring him to me, you can have that money. Just like that. That never happened. When it comes to disclosure, like Mr. Stephen Greer says, will be when aliens want to say hi to us or goodbye to us. Either way. They're not our friends. They never will be. I mean, there might be some spiritual beings out there in the solar system somewhere sending us signals and trying to talk to us. But they're not here helping us, are they? There's an alien base by every war that we ever had. By every government base, there's an alien base as well. John Edmund, who I was dealing with for a couple of years, there was an alien base right there. I thought he meant a real U.S. base because I watched the ships going in and out and all that kind of stuff. I thought they were government stuff. And then I go, you want to see the base out there? I said, sure. Driving, there's a mountain sitting right there. And I said, where's the base? Well, that's it. Well, where's the oh, no, it's underground. And I realized he meant it was a real alien base, not a government base. And everything I saw was alien ships because they were doing super weird things. But I just said, man, the technology of our government's incredible. But Sean didn't say much about it. They are releasing a satellite UFO, whatever you want to call it, by the end of this year. It costs $40 billion. It will be the worst weapon on our planet. It'll have every known weapon on it. So guess what? The United States is never going to be number 2. We will always be number 1. Unless some bomb goes off tomorrow without anybody knowing it and destroys the United States. But we will always be on top of it. Just because the government doesn't tell everybody what they're doing, Project Blue Book, Project Pegasus, and all these projects, read Sean's books. They're incredible, and they're real. They're stories of real things that are happening, all right? I saw 2 ships get blown up here in Hawaii 2 years ago. I filmed the ship that came across, and they said, oh, it was Russian space debris from 1954. No, it wasn't. I mean, the stories that you hear about what you see, it's still the same thing. Oh, it's balloons. Oh, it's a magnetic field. Oh, it's this and that. It's not. 90% of what you see will probably be a UFO, not a satellite. Satellites are little. When you see a string of lights going across the sky, when they go up into the atmosphere, higher atmosphere, they disappear. You don't see them no more. A few of the first ones we sent up were about the size of a trailer, but they're small now, as far as a box about this big or even littler. And they're not shining lights. They don't put light beams on them and all other things either. For it's solar powered or nuclear powered, radioactive material inside it, but it doesn't need to be lights and do all these kinds of things. I can go into multiple things I saw within the past years that are impossible for any U.S. government or Russian, Chinese government ship to do. All right, people. Look, it's been a pleasure. I will be in touch. I will stay in touch always as long as I'm alive, keeping the show going. Maybe I will move it to a different place. But you don't see the problem now, do you? You don't hear the problem because it's not my problem. People realize the government has been watching me since I was with Sergeant 18. He never got hurt, except recently he came into a lot of money and disappeared, right? All right. Now, if they offered me money, would I disappear? Probably. My partner's sick and I would do anything to take care of her. But outside of that, I'm here until I die. People, till next time, Tommy Hawksblood here from the Big Island. I'll put my link in the site again, just so you have it. I don't know if I should try to delete part of the show in the beginning and make it a little bit better, but it was kind of so muffled every which way. And if I bring him back on, so he could go on about different things for hours on one subject. I can't do that. My mind, I had dyslexia and I have a lot of different things. I can't do that. So, and my thing goes around in a circle. Everything is a part of it. Everything that happens is part of reality. So it all affects each other, each part of it. But till next time, Tommy Hawksblood here. Enjoy your day, night, wherever you are. Send this link to anybody you can. If you know anybody in the UFO world, tell them Tommy Hawksblood will debate you live, anywhere, anytime, no matter who it is. Sean did all the UFO panels for years until they got him and snagged him. And I would debate any one of them on that panel. But Bob Dean was the coolest guy. He's gone. But all the other names, they're all gone. So, till next time, Tommy Hawksblood.
Raise my eyes to the wild blue yonder. can't believe what I see, and it makes me wonder what's falling down on me. The sky, the sky, the sky's falling. The sky, the sky, the sky's falling. The sky's falling. Raise my eyes to the wild blue yonder. They can't believe what I see, and it makes me wonder what's falling down on me. The sky, the sky, the sky. Raise my eyes to the wild blue yonder. They can't believe what I see, and it makes me wonder what's falling down on me. The sky, the sky, the sky.